Well, that was unnecessarily stressful. The good news is, though, we have effectively snuffed out any chance of AZ Alkmaar catching us or passing us in Group E because we now hold the tiebreak. And for them to finish top two and advance, they must beat Żerynski at home and Legia Warsaw away. While we can make that December trip to Mostar irrelevant if we beat Legia at home later this month by 2 goals or more. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, if I have my arithmetic wrong there. And after all that accounting, I hope you're still awake. And let's get into it. Aston Villa 2, AZ Alkmaar 1. Greetings to you from the parlor where a heavy sense of relief fills the air after initially I was thinking this was going to be a stroll in the park, but it never is it? It's always a stressful, nervy, landmine-filled journey with peril around every single corner. I didn't think it was going to be another 4-1, especially on the back of a trip to Nottinghamshire. But credit to Villa for their ability to bounce back, not just from a poor performance, but also from a goal. And it was with a different looking lineup again. At least the way I saw it was kind of like a 4-5-1 where Yuri Tielemans wasn't playing advanced like he was at Alkmaar, but more like a traditional central midfielder, and where Moussa Diaby seemed to be given the license to roam both centrally and even out wide at times. Bit of an uncharacteristically off day for Moussa, in my opinion. If you're new and have somehow stumbled drunkenly backwards onto this channel, this is the Holy Trinity Show. Trinity in honor of the grandstand at Villa Park, but also meaning 3, as I like to distill the top 3 moments or issues that defined Villa 2, Alkmaar 1. And there at Villa Park, camera rolling, was part-time correspondent and part-time guitar legend Alex Dutton, who also bumped into Dean Smith, basically on the 2-year anniversary of his departure. And by the way, Smith had just come back from breakfast with Shaky, Craig Shakespeare, who is battling cancer at the moment, and we wish him well. Villa Park is very pretty, especially on a crisp fall evening with European football. And we'll kick things off with the key numbers. And ground duels 1 was my extra stat for this one. The numbers were great for Villa. 1 out of every 2 shots on target is the minimum you're striving for. There were lots of moments in this match that were tense because of the high pressing by both sides, frankly. So winning ground duels and recovering the ball was really important. Every inch and every ball mattered. And we got the better of it. 60-40 in terms of percentages. And like I say, those moments do add up over the course of 90 minutes. Major moment, the disallowed Clement Longley goal. Was I the only one that was completely perplexed? Because my commentator was as to why the goal was disallowed. And I think I have a pretty good grasp of the laws of the game. So there are only 2 possibilities here. 1, the defender on the goal line had absolutely no clue the ball was coming in his direction. He was just a bystander on the goal line and the ball ricocheted off his head. Or Ollie Watkins intentionally played the ball off the defender's head on the goal line so that it would bounce over to Leon Bailey for a second phase opportunity from the corner. Both of those options are ridiculous because had Ollie Watkins scored on that header there, would it have been chalked off because Leon Bailey was overstanding in an offside position? No, it wouldn't. The ball came to Leon Bailey because a defender on the goal line made a desperation clearance to prevent a goal. And that should not be seen any differently as a player playing a ball backwards towards his own byline and accidentally giving it to an opposing player in an offside position because he didn't see him standing there. It's the same thing. And granted, we benefited from a horrendous call a little later that I'll talk about. So let's call it 1-1. And IFAB routinely cannot figure out offside or handball, and I don't expect them to do it any time in the future. But you score 2.5 minutes in at home from a corner. You felt it in the building, and the players on the visiting team can be forgiven for thinking it as well. This is going to be another rout, which would have completely changed the entire complexion of the game and maybe group. Big moment, Alkmaar's opener. I actually thought this would be chalked off as well. Pavlidis arcs his run, but to the naked eye, when they showed the still, it sure looked like he was well ahead of the last defender. The goal did stand, and after that moment, take nothing away from this guy. The Greek international is absolutely on fire. That's 16 goals, if I have my math right, in all competitions. And he put it in that spot that expert strikers seem to hit all the time, underneath the goalkeeper's glove and over his leg, that little pocket of space into the far corner. That was a big scare, of course, and there were others, because the Alkmaar forwards, even the substitutes, seem to have a lot of pace, especially over the first 5 to 10 yards. And with Villa playing the high line, you've got defenders going that way and you've got forwards coming this way. That's a recipe for very stressed out spectators. Big issue, rest and recovery. 5 of our 11 starters on Thursday went the full 90 minutes, having also put in quite a shift at the City Ground the previous Sunday. And I don't know if that was Unai Emery's plan or not, but here's where that Clement Longley goal 2.5 minutes in could have come in handy, because who knows what would have happened after that. You score 2.5 minutes in, the crowd's into it, maybe you get another one, maybe it changes the entire dynamics of the game, and you can pull guys off. And I wonder if Unai Emery looked at the situation and said, we've got to win this bloody game, stay out there. And so Emi Martinez, Ollie Watkins, Luka Dean, John McGinn, and Boubacar Kamara went 90 after putting in a full load on Sunday. And so now they've probably spent at least part of the last 24 to 48 hours in an ice bath. You ever done that before? Yeah, you don't want to if you don't have to. And although they seem like durable, good athletes, they will all be expected to start this coming Sunday. Now, all those names I mentioned went 90 with the exception of Boubacar Kamara, who played 78 minutes at Nottingham Forest. The Sunday to Thursday spread is manageable. It's the Thursday to Sunday again spread where things get a little bit tricky and risky. Maybe not so much at this stage of the season in early November, but as the season wears on, that could be a problem when you start putting in 270-minute weeks. The good news is Alex Moreno is training with the squad after the international break. It is expected he will provide some relief to Luka Dean, which is great news. And then Jacob Ramsey is expected to start training after the international break. And I think it's reasonable to expect by the end of this month, JJ will be featuring again. Thank goodness. That's a huge boost for us. Big issue. Emi Martinez had a bounce-back performance after Nottingham Forest. In fact, I would put him in the man of the match category against Alkmaar. And did you know that Emi Martinez now has a 15 straight home game winning streak with Villa? That's right, he's won 15 straight home games. That has to be an Aston Villa record, because Robin Olsen was between the sticks for Everton. And in this game, he had a couple of very soft hand moments where he smothered the ball and made a difficult delivery, a scary delivery, look routine and simple. He had another one where he came flying out and snatched it with a dive. And then there were the heart in mouth, I think I soiled myself moments where he's come off his line to win a foot race, sometimes in the box, sometimes outside the box, but he's dealt with all of it. And after the Forest game, I did wonder, is he getting enough meaningful competition from Robin Olsen to keep him sharp, to keep him hungry? Because I think one of the reasons why Olsen doesn't play in this game, apart from the fact that Martinez is probably demanding to play in these games, is Olsen simply cannot do with his feet what Martinez is doing on the ball. And this is where I believe Debu has grown by leaps and bounds as almost an outfield player with gloves on because his first touch is a lot better. Short, medium, long-range passing has improved. He knows where to play the ball. He knows when to be available. The confidence he has at times to pin it when there's pressure coming. That's a fantastic value add for him. And I'm so curious as to how Monchi and Emery are going to manage this goalkeeping situation into the future, which includes Sinisalo, who's occupying a dugout seat frequently. This wasn't the best warm-up shot by the young goalkeeper, though, which makes me question his distribution and footwork ability. But what goalkeeper with career aspirations in their right mind would come to Aston Villa knowing there's a world's best number one goalkeeper, the indisputable number one on this team? Emi Martinez needs competition, and the club has to have insurance against, I don't even want to say it, but you know what I mean. They've got to protect against that. So this is something to watch down the road. Big moment number 3, dynamite defending. Oh my goodness. Well, the guy's name is Jordy Classy. So this was a classy moment of defending. I mean, Luca Dean, what a buildup this was. Pings in a ball that gets all the way through to Boubacar Kamara. He's wide open in front of the goal. We're thinking, oh, it's going to be 1-1 here for Bouba. And out of nowhere comes Classy. How did he know? He's the covering defender. He comes in and somehow manages to block it and deflect it over the crossbar. That is absolutely delightful defending by the Dutchman. I mean, it defies logic. How did he know? How did he react? How could Boubacar Kamara miss? And in came Classy to deny him. And that, of course, led to a very critical corner. Big moment number 2, Carlos's corner conversion. There I was after the Forest game, moaning the fact that we had 10 corners and couldn't really muster anything, and the fact that we as a club, despite having big center backs, cannot score directly from corners with the head. It's as rare as rocking horse over the last years at Aston Villa. And then 2.5 minutes in, Clement Longley, what does he do? He heads home from a corner second phase, which would have been his first goal for the club, and it gets wiped out. And now I'm thinking, well, we're going to have to wait till next season when, I don't know, Ipswich Town comes to Villa Park to see that rarest of feat, an Aston Villa centre back climbing up and heading home directly from a corner. But Diego Carlos said no. And 9 minutes after conceding, our chiseled Brazilian latched onto a Bullet Bailey ball into the box. It was as if time stood still for a moment, like it was happening in slow motion. Everybody was rising, but it was Carlos's head that got the right angle on it. I could not believe when it went into the corner of the goal past Matt Ryan. And just think what that will do to his confidence. A really popular guy within the group, within the fans, a guy who's had nothing but misery since he's arrived. And not only that, but that moment was like a life preserver thrown to us from SS Group E while we were thrashing around panicking in the frigid cold waters of Playoff C, which we do not need right now. Great moment. Great guy. Just before I get to the number 1 big moment of this match, I have to introduce you to Martin, who is a devoted viewer of the Holy Trinity show, for which I am so grateful. Because Martin has just recently finished a ton of work with 24/7 Services. He's a successful guy who owns a business, a factory, which 24/7 re-roofed. And now Martin's having Paul Handsaker and his crew come to his residence and completely redecorate from top to bottom. I mean, it is going to be beautiful. It's going to be like having a new house. And then he's going to get the 24/7 folks to redecorate all of his offices. Oh my goodness. And as a show of gratitude, Paul Handsaker sent Martin to the game last night. The only downside was he had to sit next to Tony Morley. So if you want to redecorate, re-roof, rewire, replumb, redo anything, you got the numbers here. get Paul over for a quote. Maybe he'll send you to a game once. And believe me, there is no obligation for you to sit next to Tony. And the number one big moment that defined Villa 2, Alkmaar 1, world-class connection. I thought Douglas Luiz was going to come on earlier than he did, but he didn't need to come on earlier. He just needed one moment. And on the heels of his deserved selection back to La Seleção, which is amazing, here's another player that Unai Emery has taken under his wing and helped him to get to his national team. Great for Douglas, great for his exposure. Complicated for Villa because there's a lot of travel in South American football, and so let's hope that doesn't affect him down the road. Regardless, he comes into a game where he's cold. Yes, there are tired legs around him, but there's chaos because this is a big game in the context of the group. And what does he do? Not 7 minutes into stepping onto the field, he looks off Ollie Watkins and plays the only ball that will not only lead Watkins to score with the header, but beat the offside trap. I mean, this is a world-class moment that has major reverberations in the context of Aston Villa's Europa Conference League campaign. And this is a guy who I think could actually sign another contract extension with Aston Villa. That's how good he is. That's how valuable to us he is. And we have to do everything we can to make sure we ward off any vultures. And then on the receiving end, Ollie Watkins, who apart from the goal line clearance 2.5 minutes in, and all his hustle, hunting, harrying, hurrying, harassing, chasing, running, all that dog work without any joy, 81 minutes of hard work. He had to be clinical and precise in a split second. And we all think, oh, that's easy. He's all alone in front of the goal. You just have to head it in. It is never, ever that straightforward. He just made it look that way. And then, of course, in such a pivotal moment in Group E, he had to wait as VAR sucked the joy and life out of football, and we had to wait for the goal to be checked before confirming that, in fact, he was onside. Another feature of Ollie Watkins' game where he has drastically improved since coming to Villa. Do you remember that first season when he was called offside on so many goals? I remember one at West Brom, one at West Ham by the most razor thin of margins. Well, he's learned how to time his run to perfection now, and he's reaping the rewards. Brazilian international to England international. Thank you very much, Alkmaar. We'll have all 3 of those points. Bye-bye now. I have a bonus issue for you. For the second time this season already, Aston Villa has reversed a deficit and come back to win a game. They did it at home to Crystal Palace earlier, and now again on Thursday. I've told you numerous times the win percentages of the teams that score first, particularly at home. And Aston Villa has now bucked that trend twice already this season. So we have clear evidence over the last 12 months of the tactical revolution under Unai Emery. But I think more importantly, it is the cultural revolution that is occurring. And in this case, it's about the mindset. Think back to just 18 months ago, or even farther. Go back to the Steve Bruce days. Imagine what would have happened at Villa Park when we conceded first. The crowd starts to become impatient. The players feed off of that and maybe don't make good decisions because they're anxious, they're hurrying, they're rushing. And now Unai Emery, who from the very beginning included the supporters as a big part of the process. Let's make Villa Park a fortress together. You help us, we will feed you. We will be confident and clear and have an identifiable style on the field, and you will help us to make this ground impenetrable, which he has. Then on the field, a clarity to the style of football where the players can make better decisions in all circumstances. I mean, Thursday was the perfect example of how an entire club psychologically has become stronger and more confident. And from there, you can build. Up next, a visit from Fulham. Oh, the Cottagers will have been gutted last weekend to lose late to such a bang-average mid-table side like Manchester United. But this is the post-Alexandre Mitrovic Fulham, which will be music to Villa fans' ears because that guy, through his various antics and also goals, is not part of the group anymore, and that makes me happy. But I don't know what to make of Fulham right now. They have been a problematic side for us for some reason of late, languishing. Down in 15th place, just 6 points above the drop zone, but 6 points from European football. And it's a club that has invested heavily in infrastructure to increase the capacity at Craven Cottage and maybe bring in more revenue is partially, I'm sure, a part of this plan to maybe not expect European football, but to aspire to European football. Another little sideshow I'm looking forward to on Sunday is the Emi Martinez versus Bernd Leno goalkeeping matchup as the two ex-Arsenal keepers face each other on Sunday. I was watching the game when Bernd Leno was injured thanks to some Neil Mopai shithousery, and this cat named Emi Martinez, who I'd never heard of before, comes into the game, and look at what has happened since, apart from allowing a critical goal at Villa Park that helped keep us in the Premier League. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to, but how is this game going to go? Last year, Tyrone Mings straight from the corner was the only goal. Are we going to see something similar, a one-goal game, especially considering the proximity to the Thursday Europa Conference League game, or is it possible that Villa puts up 3 or 4? Because the one thing I'll say about Fulham under Marco Silva is they want to play. They are happy to attack and counterattack. I don't think they're going to pull a Luton and sit in a low to mid block. And by the way, Tony Barton's 1983 record of 13 straight league home wins at Villa Park is now clearly within reach. I am not looking forward to an international break. At least it's the last one of 2023, so I'm going to spend the off weekend on my anniversary because, kids, you can't be happy forever. You got to get married sometime. And me and my wife are going to go to our favorite place, a ski resort called Whistler Blackcomb, about 2.5 hours from here. Beautiful hotels and dining and walks and spas and pools, maybe even a dusting of snow. I'm going to write my Christmas wish list to Santa from the Villa store, but that's down the road. Let's get to the game on Sunday first. Until the Cottagers' visit to Villa Park, be well, and as always, up the mighty Villa!